In the land of Canaan long ago, there lived a couple whose names would echo through the ages. Isaac, the son of the great patriarch Abraham, and his wife Rebekah yearned for a child. Years passed, and the desire for an heir seemed increasingly distant. But they did not give up. Isaac fervently prayed to the Lord, pleading for a miracle. And behold, the impossible happened. Rebekah became pregnant, but her joy soon turned into concern. She felt an unusual agitation in her womb, as if a battle were occurring inside her. Confused and anxious, Rebekah sought divine guidance. The Lord answered her plea with a surprising revelation. 2 nations are in your womb. 2 peoples will separate from your body. 1 people will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger. These words, enigmatic and profound, would mark the destiny not only of her family, but of entire nations. Finally, the day of childbirth arrived. The anticipation was palpable in the air, and everyone around Rebekah waited anxiously. To everyone's surprise, it was not just 1 baby, but 2, twins. The first to be born had reddish skin and was covered in hair, like a little cloak. They named him Esau, which means hairy. Soon after, the second baby came, grasping his brother's heel. He was named Jacob, which means he who grasps the heel or supplanter. From the very first moment, it was clear that these 2 brothers were as different as day and night. Esau, the firstborn, grew up to be a skilled hunter, a man of the field. He was strong, robust, and impetuous, always seeking adventures in the outdoors. His body was covered in hair, giving him a unique and wild appearance. Jacob, on the other hand, was a quiet man, preferring the peaceful life of the tents. He was astute, reflective, and had a knack for business and strategy. While Esau ran through the forests in search of game, Jacob stayed at home, learning the traditions of his people and the secrets of trade. The difference between the brothers was not limited to their personalities and interests. There was also a distinction in the affection of their parents. Isaac, perhaps admiring Esau's strength and courage, had a preference for the older son. The scent of nature that Esau brought with him after his hunts and the taste of the meat he prepared enchanted the old patriarch. Rebekah, on the other hand, had a special fondness for Jacob, appreciating his calmer nature and his constant presence at home. Years later, a prophet named Malachi would pronounce intriguing words about these brothers. I loved Jacob, but I hated Esau. These words, shocking at first glance, did not refer to personal hatred, but rather to a divine choice regarding God's greater plan for humanity. It was a declaration that transcended individual personalities, pointing to the role each would play in the history of their people. Esau, as the firstborn, had significant rights and responsibilities. In the culture of the time, the eldest son inherited not only the majority of his father's possessions, but also the patriarchal blessing, a kind of spiritual legacy passed down from generation to generation. This blessing carried with it divine promises, including the promise made to Abraham that through his descendants all the nations of the earth would be blessed. However, destiny had surprising twists in store for these brothers. The prophecy given to Rebekah before the twins were born, that the older would serve the younger, would begin to unfold in unexpected ways. Esau's choices, his impulsiveness, and his apparent lack of appreciation for the spiritual value of his birthright would dramatically shape future events. As the years passed, the differences between Esau and Jacob became increasingly evident. Esau stood out as a fearless hunter, capable of facing the dangers of the wilderness with courage and skill. His imposing, hairy figure was recognized by all, and many admired his strength and dexterity. He was a man of action, living in the present moment, without much concern for the future or deeper spiritual issues. Jacob, in contrast, grew in wisdom and cunning. He observed carefully the world around him, learning the nuances of human relationships and the secrets of trade. His mind was always working, planning, anticipating future moves. Although less physically impressive than his brother, Jacob possessed an inner strength and determination that would enable him to thrive in challenging circumstances. The family dynamics were complex. Isaac, now aging and with poor vision, found comfort in Esau's robust presence and the flavor of the game he brought home. For the patriarch, Esau represented the continuity of a strong lineage, capable of facing the challenges of a world often hostile. Rebekah, on the other hand, saw in Jacob the qualities necessary to lead God's people. She recognized in him a spiritual sensitivity and intelligence that, in her opinion, made him more suitable to carry on Abraham's legacy. This preference of the parents, though subtle, did not go unnoticed by the brothers. Esau, confident in his status as the firstborn and in his father's love, lived his days without much concern for the future implications of his actions. Jacob, on the other hand, grew with a keen awareness of his secondary position and a burning desire to change his destiny. The story of these brothers invites us to reflect on the complexities of family relationships, the weight of expectations, and how our choices can have far-reaching consequences. Esau and Jacob, so different since birth, were destined for a conflict that would transcend their personal lives, affecting entire nations. As Esau hunted in the fields of Canaan, unaware of the forces shaping his destiny, Jacob observed and planned. The stage was set for one of the most dramatic and consequential episodes in biblical history, a moment that would forever change the course of their lives and the future of their people. The sun was scorching the land of Canaan, its relentless rays making the air shimmer over the parched plains. In this arid and challenging landscape, another chapter in the intriguing story of the brothers Esau and Jacob was unfolding. The day had begun like many others, but it was destined to become a milestone in the history of two nations yet to be born. Esau, the skilled hunter, had set out at dawn. With his bow on his back and a quiver full of arrows, he ventured into the wildlands in search of game. Hours passed, the sun rose high in the sky, and the heat intensified. The hunt, usually successful, proved exceptionally difficult that day. The animals seemed to have vanished, hiding from the scorching heat in burrows and inaccessible shadows. Meanwhile, in the safety of the family tents, Jacob occupied himself with his daily tasks. His eyes, always watchful, occasionally turned toward the horizon, as if he were waiting for his brother's return. There was a tension in the air, a sense that something significant was about to happen. The hours dragged on, and the sun began its descent in the western sky. It was then that a staggering figure appeared on the horizon. It was Esau, exhausted and famished, returning from his fruitless hunt. His body, usually vigorous and full of energy, now seemed fragile and spent. Hunger and thirst had taken their toll, and the proud hunter could barely keep himself upright. The smell of something cooking filled the air, causing Esau's stomach to rumble painfully. His bleary eyes focused on the source of the tempting aroma, a large bubbling pot over the fire, filled with a stew of lentils that Jacob had prepared. "Brother," Esau called, his voice hoarse from thirst, "please give me some of that red stew. I'm starving, about to faint." The words came out in gasps, revealing the desperation of a man at the limit of his strength. Jacob, who had been watching his brother's approach, did not respond immediately. His shrewd eyes studied Esau, assessing the situation. For a moment, the only sounds were the bubbling of the stew and Esau's labored breathing. Then Jacob spoke, his words carefully chosen. "Of course, my brother, but first, sell me your birthright." The request, seemingly absurd, hung in the air between them. The birthright was something sacred, an honor and responsibility passed from father to the eldest son. It included not only a double portion of the inheritance, but also the leadership of the family, and more importantly, the spiritual blessing that carried the divine promises made to Abraham. Esau, in his state of exhaustion and extreme hunger, did not seem to fully grasp the weight of what was being asked of him. His response came quickly and thoughtlessly. "Look, I'm about to die of hunger. What good is the birthright to me?" Jacob, recognizing the unique opportunity before him, pressed on. "Swear to me right now." And Esau, in a moment of weakness that would echo through the centuries, swore, handing over his birthright for a bowl of food. The pact was sealed. Jacob served Esau bread and the lentil stew. The firstborn ate and drank eagerly, satisfying his immediate hunger and thirst, but losing something of immeasurable value in the process. When he finished his meal and the fog of hunger dissipated, Esau got up and left, seemingly indifferent to what he had just done. This seemingly trivial moment was, in fact, a monumental turning point. The words exchanged that day between the tents would reverberate for generations, shaping the destiny of entire nations. Esau's actions revealed much about his character. He was a man of the moment, driven by his immediate desires and needs. The hunger and fatigue led him to disregard something of immense spiritual and cultural value. His willingness to trade his birthright for a meal demonstrated a lack of long-term vision and a devaluation of his spiritual heritage. Jacob, on the other hand, proved to be calculating and opportunistic. He recognized the value of the birthright and was willing to take advantage of his brother's momentary weakness to obtain it. His action, although ethically questionable, revealed a deep understanding of the importance of spiritual blessings and a fierce determination to achieve what he saw as his destiny. The days that followed were marked by a silent tension between the brothers. Esau, recovered from his exhaustion, seemed to pay little attention to what had happened. He continued his life as a hunter, going out on his expeditions, seemingly forgotten the pact he had made. Jacob, on his part, kept the secret of his new position, waiting for the right moment to fully claim what he now considered his by right. The news of the incident soon spread throughout the family. Rebekah, the mother of the twins, heard about the agreement with a mix of surprise and perhaps a hint of satisfaction. She had always seen Jacob as the more suitable son to carry on the family legacy. Isaac, on the other hand, remained oblivious to what had transpired, his failing eyesight preventing him from perceiving the subtle changes in the dynamics between his sons. This event raises profound questions about the value we attribute to things in our lives. What do we truly consider important? How easily are we willing to give up our heritage, whether material or spiritual, for immediate gains? The story of Esau and Jacob invites us to reflect on our own choices and priorities. Furthermore, the episode illustrates how seemingly small decisions can have far-reaching consequences. Esau's impulsive choice not only affected his life, but altered the course of history for his people. Sometimes we do not realize the weight of our actions at the moment we perform them, and only with time do we fully understand the impact of our decisions. The sale of the birthright also makes us question the role of destiny versus free will. The prophecy given to Rebekah before the twins' birth, that the older would serve the younger, seemed to be coming to fruition. But to what extent were Esau and Jacob's actions predestined, and to what extent were they the result of their own choices? As time passed, the implications of this agreement began to manifest in subtle ways. Jacob, now the holder of the birthright, adopted a more confident stance. He started to get more involved in family matters, preparing for the leadership role he believed was his by right. Esau, in turn, continued his life as before, seemingly without remorse or regret for the exchange he had made. However, the seeds of conflict had been sown. The tension between the brothers, once latent, was now silently growing. It was only a matter of time before this tension would come to the surface, bringing with it consequences that neither of them could fully foresee. The story of Esau and Jacob, particularly this episode of the sale of the birthright, continues to fascinate and intrigue readers and scholars to this day. It is a narrative that transcends its historical context, offering timeless lessons about family, choices, consequences, and the delicate balance between destiny and free will. As the sun set over Isaac's tents on that fateful day, no one could fully predict the ramifications of what had occurred. The stage was set for even more dramatic events that would shape not only the future of Esau and Jacob, but the destiny of entire nations. The story of these brothers was far from over, and the following chapters promised to be even more intense and consequential. Years had passed since that fateful day when Esau sold his birthright for a bowl of lentils. Life in Isaac's tent had carried on, seemingly unchanged, but beneath the surface the currents of fate continued to move, setting the stage for one of the most dramatic and consequential moments in the history of this family. Isaac, the patriarch, was now an old man. His eyes, once bright and piercing, had been dimmed by age, leaving him nearly blind. Feeling the weight of the years on his shoulders, Isaac knew that the time had come to pass on the patriarchal blessing, a deeply significant spiritual and cultural act. On a quiet afternoon, Isaac called for Esau, his firstborn and favorite son. His voice, though weakened by age, still carried the authority of a respected leader. "My son," he said, "I am old and do not know the day of my death. Now take your weapons, your quiver and your bow, and go out to the field and hunt something for me. Prepare a tasty meal the way I like it, and bring it to me to eat, so that I may bless you before I die." Esau, always eager to please his father, immediately set out on his mission. The sound of his footsteps had barely faded when another figure emerged from the shadows of the tent. It was Rebekah, Isaac's wife, and the mother of the twins. She had overheard every word of the conversation between father and son, and her heart raced with the urgency of the moment. Without wasting any time, Rebekah rushed to find Jacob, her favorite son. "Listen," she whispered hurriedly. "I heard your father tell Esau to bring him game and prepare a tasty meal so that he may bless him in the presence of the Lord before he dies. Now, my son, listen to me carefully and do what I say. Go to the flock and bring me 2 choice young goats. I will prepare a tasty meal for your father, just the way he likes it. Then you will take it to your father to eat, so that he may bless you before his death." Jacob, always shrewd, immediately recognized the risks of the plan. "But my mother," he argued, "my brother Esau is a hairy man and I have smooth skin. What if my father touches me? He will realize that I am trying to deceive him and will curse me instead of blessing me." Rebekah, determined in her purpose, replied firmly, "My son, let the curse fall on me. Just obey me and go get the goats for me." Thus began an elaborate charade. Rebekah, with skill and haste, prepared the meal exactly as Isaac liked it. Then she took the best clothes of Esau and dressed Jacob in them. To complete the disguise, she covered Jacob's hands and neck with the skins of the goats, mimicking the texture of Esau's skin. With a racing heart and trembling hands, Jacob entered his father's tent, carrying the meal prepared by his mother. "My father," he called, trying to imitate Esau's voice. Isaac, surprised by the quick return, asked, "Who are you, my son?" Jacob answered, "I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done as you asked. Please sit up and eat of my game so that you may bless me." Isaac, still suspicious, requested that his son come closer so he could touch him. His wrinkled fingers ran over Jacob's arms, feeling the hairy texture of the goat skins. "The voice is Jacob's," he murmured, "but the hands are Esau's." Confused, but still not entirely convinced, Isaac asked once more, "Are you really my son Esau?" "I am," Jacob lied, his heart pounding so hard he feared his father could hear it. Finally convinced, or perhaps simply weary of doubting, Isaac asked for the meal. He ate and drank the wine that Jacob brought him. Then he called his son close and kissed him. As he smelled the scent of Esau's clothes, Isaac's last doubts dissipated. With a solemn voice, the patriarch began to pronounce the blessing. "Ah, the smell of my son is like the smell of a field that the Lord has blessed. May God give you of the dew of heaven and of the fatness of the earth, plenty of grain and wine. Let people serve you, and nations bow down to you. Be lord over your brothers, and may the sons of your mother bow down to you. Cursed be everyone who curses you, and blessed be everyone who blesses you." The words, laden with power and promise, echoed through the tent. Jacob, trembling under the weight of the moment and the guilt of his deception, could hardly believe that his plan had succeeded. The blessing, meant for Esau, was now his. Barely had Jacob left his father's presence when Esau returned from his hunt. Proud of his success and eager to receive the blessing, he prepared the meal and brought it to Isaac. "My father," called Esau, entering the tent, "sit up and eat from my hunt so that you may bless me." Isaac, confused and alarmed, asked, "Who are you?" "I am your son," Esau replied, "your firstborn Esau." At that moment, the reality of what had happened hit Isaac with full force. He began to tremble violently, realizing he had been deceived. "Who then," he asked, "hunted the game and brought it to me? I ate it all before you arrived and blessed him, and indeed he will be blessed." Upon hearing his father's words, Esau let out a bitter and anguished cry. "Bless me also, my father," he pleaded. But Isaac, with sorrow in his voice, replied, "Your brother came and deceived me, taking your blessing." Esau's anger and pain overflowed. "No wonder they call him Jacob," he exclaimed. "He has deceived me twice. He took my birthright, and now he has taken my blessing." Then, turning to his father with despair in his eyes, Esau asked, "Have you not reserved a blessing for me?" Isaac answered with words that must have cut Esau's heart, "I have made him lord over you, and have given him all your relatives as servants, and I have supplied him with grain and new wine. What can I do for you now, my son?" But Esau did not give up. He continued to plead, "Is there not a blessing left, my father? Bless me also." And he wept bitterly. Moved by his son's anguish, Isaac finally offered a blessing to Esau, but it was a bitter blessing, almost a curse. "Your dwelling will be far from the richness of the earth, far from the dew of the heavens above. You will live by the sword and serve your brother, but when you grow restless, you will break his yoke from your neck." Isaac's words echoed through the tent, sealing the fate of his 2 sons and the nations that would descend from them. Jacob's deception had achieved its goal. He was now the bearer of the patriarchal blessing. But the cost of this act would be high, much higher than he could imagine at that moment. Esau's heart was filled with hatred for his brother. "My father will die soon," he thought, "and then I will kill my brother Jacob." When Rebekah learned of Esau's plans for revenge, she acted quickly once again to protect her favorite son. She called Jacob and advised him to flee to her brother Laban's house in Haran. "Stay with him for a while," she said, "until your brother's fury passes." Thus Jacob departed, leaving behind his family, his land, and the chaos he had created. He had obtained the blessing he so desired, but at what cost? His journey would take him to distant lands, where he would face challenges and trials that would test his faith and character. Meanwhile, Esau remained, bitter and resentful, determined to reclaim what he believed was rightfully his. The chasm between the brothers, once a small fissure, was now an insurmountable abyss. This story of deception and its consequences leads us to reflect on the nature of our own actions and choices. How often do we allow our immediate desires to blind us to the long-term consequences? How willing are we to compromise our integrity to achieve our goals? The paths of Esau and Jacob, once so intertwined, were now dramatically diverging. While Jacob fled to distant lands, Esau remained in Canaan, his life taking unexpected turns that would shape not only his personal future, but also the destiny of an entire nation. Esau, the man of the field, the skilled hunter, now found himself at a crossroads. The loss of the paternal blessing and the rupture with his twin brother had left a void in his life, a void he would attempt to fill in various ways in the years to come. At the age of 40, a significant milestone in the culture of the time, Esau made a decision that caused great sorrow to his parents, Isaac and Rebekah. He chose as wives 2 Hittite women, Judith, daughter of Beeri, and Basemath, daughter of Elon. This choice was not well received by his family, as the Hittites were a foreign people, with customs and beliefs different from the Abrahamic traditions that Isaac and Rebekah valued so highly. The biblical text tells us that these women were a source of bitterness to Isaac and Rebekah, Genesis 26:35. This succinct statement conceals a deep familial pain. For Isaac and Rebekah, Esau's marriages represented more than just an unwanted alliance with a foreign people. It was a departure from the promises made by God to Abraham, a dilution of the lineage chosen to carry the divine blessing. We can imagine the tensions that must have arisen in Isaac's tent. Rebekah, who already favored Jacob, must have seen in Esau's marital choices yet another confirmation that her younger son was the more suitable one to carry on the family legacy. Isaac, on his part, must have felt deeply divided. His love for Esau was evident, but his firstborn's actions went against everything he had learned and valued throughout his life. Esau's Hittite wives brought with them not only their customs and beliefs, but also a new dynamic to the family. Life in the patriarchal tent, once centered on traditions and worship of the God of Abraham, now found itself challenged by foreign practices and ideas. This cultural clash must have been a constant source of conflict and tension. Despite this, Esau did not seem to realize the impact of his choices. Or perhaps, in his pain and resentment over the loss of the blessing, he deliberately chose a path that distanced him from his family's traditions. Regardless, his actions were shaping not only his own future, but that of his entire lineage. Years passed, and life continued its course. Esau established his own household, separate from that of his parents. He continued to thrive as a hunter and man of the field, his skills earning him a position of respect among the peoples of the region. His children were born and grew up, learning both their father's traditions and the customs of their Hittite mothers. Then one day, news reached Esau's ears. His brother Jacob, after years of exile, was returning to Canaan, and he was not coming back alone. He was bringing wives, children, and great wealth. The news must have reignited old wounds in Esau. The brother who had deceived him, stealing his blessing and forcing him into exile, was now returning in triumph. It was at this crucial moment that Esau made another significant decision regarding his marriage. Realizing how much his Hittite wives displeased his parents, he decided to take a third wife, but this time his choice was strategic and laden with meaning. Esau went to Ishmael, his father Isaac's half-brother, and married Mahalath, daughter of Ishmael and sister of Nebaioth. This choice was not random. By marrying a descendant of Abraham, Esau was making an attempt to reconnect with his family roots. It was as if he was saying, "I too am part of this lineage. I too carry the blood of Abraham." This third marriage of Esau reveals much about his character and inner struggle. Despite his previous choices distancing him from his family's traditions, it seems that a part of him still yearned for acceptance and recognition. Perhaps by marrying Mahalath, he hoped to appease his parents' disappointment and reaffirm his place in Abraham's lineage. However, Esau's destiny was already in motion. His prior choices, combined with the blessing that Jacob had received, had set a path for him and his descendants that would lead them away from the promised land. Over time, Esau and his family moved to the mountainous region of Seir, south of Canaan. This shift was not just geographical, but also symbolic. By settling in Seir, Esau was effectively separating himself from the promised lineage, beginning his own distinct nation. In Seir, Esau prospered. His descendants multiplied and became powerful. They became known as the Edomites, a people who would play a significant role in Israel's history in the centuries that followed. The biblical narrative provides a detailed list of Esau's descendants in Genesis 36, a genealogy that demonstrates how vast and influential his lineage became. Among his descendants were tribal chiefs, kings, and powerful leaders. The land of Edom, as it became known, was inhabited by Esau's descendants and became a prosperous and feared nation. It is interesting to note how the blessing that Isaac gave to Esau was fulfilled. Remember the words, "Your dwelling will be away from the richness of the earth, away from the dew of the heavens above. You will live by the sword and serve your brother. But when you become restless, you will break his yoke from your neck." In Seir, a dry and mountainous land, the Edomites indeed lived away from the richness of the earth. They became a warrior people, living by the sword. And although they were sometimes under the dominion of Israel, the descendants of Jacob, they frequently rebelled, breaking the yoke. The story of Esau's marriages and descendants offers several lessons and points of reflection. First, we see how our choices, especially those related to marriage and family, can have far-reaching consequences, affecting not only our lives, but those of future generations. We are also reminded of the complexity of family relationships. The disappointment that Esau caused his parents with his first marriages, and his subsequent attempt to remedy the situation with a third marriage, illustrate the tensions that can arise when family expectations collide with individual choices. Furthermore, Esau's story shows us how identity and belonging are central themes in the human experience. His marital choices reflect an internal struggle between the desire for independence and the need for connection with his roots. The formation of the Edomite nation from Esau's descendants also reminds us how the actions of an individual can have national and even global impacts. What began as a conflict between two brothers transformed into centuries of complex interactions between two nations. Lastly, the story of Esau and his descendants invites us to reflect on the concept of blessing and curse. Despite not receiving his father's primary blessing, Esau still prospered and became the father of a powerful nation. This leads us to question, what truly constitutes a blessing? Is it possible to find purpose and meaning even when things do not go as we planned? As the narrative progresses, we see that Esau's story does not end with him. His descendants, the Edomites, would continue to play a significant role in Israel's history. Sometimes as enemies, sometimes as allies, the paths of Edom and Israel would remain intertwined, reflecting the complex relationship between the twin brothers who founded these nations. Esau's journey from beloved firstborn to father of a foreign nation is a story of choices, consequences, and redemption. Through his marriages and his descendants, he found a new path, different from the one originally destined for him, but no less significant. His story reminds us that even in the face of disappointments and changes in direction, it is still possible to build a lasting legacy. Years passed since Esau and Jacob separated, each following his own path. Esau had settled in the mountainous region of Seir, building a life for himself and his family, while Jacob spent 2 decades in exile, working for his uncle Laban. Now, the moment of their reunion approached, laden with tension and uncertainty. Jacob, returning to the land of Canaan with his wives, children, and wealth, sent messengers ahead to inform Esau of his arrival. When the messengers returned with the news that Esau was coming to meet him with 400 men, Jacob's heart filled with fear. He remembered the vow of revenge his brother had made so many years ago. On the night before the meeting, after dividing his camp and sending gifts to appease Esau, Jacob had his famous encounter with the angel, wrestling until dawn. From this struggle, he emerged with a new name, Israel, and a new perspective. Finally, the day of the meeting arrived. Jacob saw Esau approaching with his men and, fearing the worst, bowed 7 times before his brother. But to his surprise and relief, Esau ran to meet him, embraced him, kissed him, and they both wept. This moment of reconciliation is one of the most powerful in the biblical narrative. Esau, the man who had sworn to kill his brother, now received him with open arms. Time and distance seemed to have softened his anger, allowing fraternal love to prevail. When Esau asked about the gifts Jacob had sent, his brother replied, "To find favor in your eyes, my lord." But Esau, in a gesture of generosity, said, "I have enough, my brother. Keep what is yours." This exchange reveals much about the transformation of both brothers. Jacob, once the deceiver, now humbled himself before Esau. And Esau, who once valued his birthright so little that he sold it for a bowl of stew, now demonstrated a maturity and abundance that surprised Jacob. Despite the warm reconciliation, the brothers did not return to live together. Esau went back to Seir, while Jacob settled in Canaan. This geographical separation symbolized the different paths that their lives and those of their descendants would take. Esau's legacy extended far beyond his own life. His descendants, the Edomites, became a powerful nation. The land of Edom, rich in minerals and strategically located along trade routes, prospered for many centuries. However, the relationship between Edom and Israel, the nations founded by Esau and Jacob, was often marked by conflict. There were periods of Israelite domination over Edom, fulfilling part of Isaac's blessing that said Esau would serve his brother. But there were also times when Edom broke the yoke, rebelling against Israel's control. One of the most intriguing aspects of Esau's legacy is how he is remembered in Jewish and Christian tradition. While Jacob is celebrated as the patriarch of Israel, father of the 12 tribes, Esau is often portrayed negatively as an example of someone who despised his birthright. However, a closer reading of the biblical narrative reveals a more complex Esau. He is presented as an impulsive and sometimes reckless man, but also capable of forgiveness and generosity. His reconciliation with Jacob demonstrates a nobility of character that is often overlooked. Esau's legacy invites us to reflect on universal themes: the value we assign to our inheritances, both material and spiritual, the complexity of family relationships, the possibility of healing and reconciliation even after deep wounds, and how our choices can shape not only our lives, but also those of future generations. The story of Esau also reminds us that historical narratives are often written by the winners. While the Bible primarily focuses on Jacob's lineage, the mention of Edom's prosperity and power suggests that Esau's path, though different, was no less significant. Ultimately, Esau's legacy is a testament to the complexity of the human experience. It shows us that our lives are not defined by a single moment or choice, but by the totality of our actions and relationships. The reconciliation with Jacob in particular serves as a powerful reminder that it is possible to overcome even the deepest family divisions. Thus,
let the Word of God touch your heart, like a light guiding you through the darkest moments. Every step in faith is a journey filled with hope. We are never alone on this path, for He is always by our side. Open your heart and let His love transform you, helping you spread that light to those around you.
the story of Esau continues to resonate through the centuries, challenging us to consider our own choices, relationships.
Let the Word of God touch your heart, like a light guiding you through the darkest moments. Every step in faith is a journey filled with hope. We are never alone on this path, for He is always by our side. Open your heart and let His love transform you, helping you spread that light to those around you.
And the legacy we will leave for future generations.